So I said, we got a guest today.
Yeah.
I don't normally do guests. I try to keep it tight. But I'm learning that like in this podcast game and even in the podcast that we normally produce, I have questions. I have experiences that I want to share with people based on relationships that I have, right? My So I Said rants don't just come from my head. They come from experiences that I'm having with people. And so I think that it might be important to introduce people into the podcast space. But I don't really know how to do that. So the person that I'm going to do it with is the one who's been riding with me when I didn't know what I was doing. It's appropriate. You know what I'm saying? So how about you introduce yourself to the people? However you want to introduce yourself to the people, and maybe we should just talk. That sound all right?
That's cool. Hey y'all, what's up? And stuff. No, my name is
Hey y'all, what's up and stuff?
and stuff, yeah.
Yikes.
Don't do me. Thank you. Hey y'all, my name is Sharmayne Freeman Sellers. I am Dylan's wife.
It's my lady.
Wow.
But
But I got flack for and stuff, but you sound like somebody's 65-year-old uncle.
I always sound like somebody's 65-year-old uncle.
True.
I usually sound like somebody's 65-year-old uncle who's angry about something. That's what they normally get.
No, like legit.
That's the whole vibe of the podcast.
Because we still on that hat.
Listen, I like the hat, okay?
No, I'm talking about that hat when we were at the store and you were just like so upset about this girl's hat. Like, why would she wear that with that outfit? Like you just went in for like 10 minutes.
It was the first time that I'd seen a hat where like there wasn't like it was a baseball cap, but there wasn't a back to it. Yeah. Right? Like it just then like
it's
why?
For natural girls. For the puff. What you mean?
But there was no puff.
Awkward.
That would have made sense if there was a puff.
I don't remember that.
There was no puff.
You
like
just called the girl bald, awkward.
I didn't call her bald. It just wasn't a puff. And it didn't make any sense to me. And like I felt comfortable having a conversation about it with you. I didn't walk up to the woman.
You didn't have a conversation with me. You went on a 10-minute rant because you were upset about her hat ensemble choice. That wasn't a conversation.
Because things are confusing, okay? Like, it's so, I had questions. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about.
Okay.
At least I don't think that's what we're here to talk about.
I mean, that sounds like that's your normal, though.
Yeah. So anyway, my wife is here.
Hello.
She thought that it might be interesting for us to talk about relationships, reconciliation, redemption, like forgiveness, like what those things look like in relationships, whether that be marriages or platonic relationships, family.
Because
right?
child. Yep.
And I thought, why not start here? We're coming up on our 8th anniversary. Mm-hmm. And I think that it might be an okay time to start talking about our experiences in our relationship. Mm-hmm. Because we're maturing as a couple.
We love it. We out here.
You know,
whole adulting.
Listen, man, like our relationship is maturing, you know, and that's, you know, it's different. You think you know things until you're in it for a while. Yeah. And then you realize you don't know things about stuff.
Or there's an evolution and more things are revealed over time.
Yeah, I felt uncomfortable giving people advice about relationships when we were only married for like 2 years. I felt like really uncomfortable with that.
But I could see that. But then at the same time, even though we were married for 2 years, we were together for 5 and we dated for 3 years before we got married. So that's still a 5-year relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's real. But I think marriage is different.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right? Like, well, that's maybe another podcast. Why do you want to talk about reconciliation? Is there something that I need to be reconciled for? Is there like something I need?
What?
Is there something I need forgiveness for? This is the way that you're telling me that I need to apologize? Is that what's happening?
No. So in all honesty, you know, we have a church. So that's a thing.
Yeah.
And
shout out to the Purpose fam.
We love them. And so there's just been a lot of conversations about, conflict and discord in relationships. And so it's got me thinking about, what does that look like? How do we navigate? Because unfortunately for us, we had to learn this the hard way.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of it, no blueprint. So literally, if it had not been for therapy and Jesus, no telling.
Yeah, shout out to our therapist. Yes. Jesus, is the ultimate shout out. But like our therapist is top notch.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, right. So I think that that's fair. I think that I want to start with I just kind of like touching you.
Because you're just like really here on this kneecap.
Listen,
really
I'm trying to get some kneecap action. That ain't got nothing to do with that. I think that we should maybe set the stage, if we're going to talk about like forgiveness and reconciliation, that we talk about it as two separate things. Because sometimes people use those things interchangeably.
Oh yeah, because they are not the same thing.
Talk to me about a little bit about the differences.
Well, for me, I think forgiveness is very hard. Let's just start with that.
Okay.
Because the way that I've heard it, taught in biblical or pastoral circles is basically to stop requiring someone to pay a debt. Like when we're talking about like loan forgiveness, you don't have to pay that back anymore. Shout out to Joe Biden. Amen. Because I'm really hoping to get that 20,000 just knocked off.
Facts.
Forgive that. Hallelujah. But so that becomes really difficult when we're talking about emotions, because most times you want somebody to pay for the pain, the frustration, the confusion, the time lost, the heartbroken. But I'm just supposed to let that go.
Yeah.
And not get any kind of, vengeance or justice and I don't sit well with people.
Yeah.
Especially when you start to realize that is genuinely what forgiveness means. Like, not only do I not require it of you, because you don't really have it to give in the first place. You can't give me that time back. You can't take the words back. Like you say, oh, I'll take it back. But they've already been said. They've already cut. They've already done the damage. So you can work to heal, but those words will still be there.
Yeah.
So not only do I have to stop requiring some sort of recompense, but I also have to begin the work of healing and genuinely not allowing, negative emotions to cloud my judgment or to infiltrate the space. I really have to move forward and be okay with maybe they never apologize. Maybe they never tried to set things right. Maybe they never even realized that what they did was wrong or that it significantly affected me.
Right.
I let all of that go. I give it to God and move on. Now, saying the words like, oh, yeah, but like doing it, especially depending on the severity of the offense or...
Right.
Well,
I think that like
tough.
The forgiveness thing is important for you, not for the other person.
Oh, for sure.
Right. And I think I had to learn that when I'm talking about like forgiveness of like my dad, for instance. Right.
We're going there. Okay. Amen.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like this would be a secret.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
touche.
And so I think that like with my father, like I didn't meet him until I was 15 years old. And so there was a need to like know who he was, but he had missed like 15 years of my life. And then even after that, he moved to Florida. Right. And so like there was a disconnect, and I realized that I was harboring something that kept me from moving forward in my life, because I was looking for him to fill a hole or looking for something to fill that void, right? Instead of like legitimately forgiving him, I'm looking to replace him.
Oh.
Right? And so like I'm not grieving the loss, I'm not completing the emotion. I'm just trying to replace it. It's similar to like, your puppy dies and you just go buy another puppy, right? And just try to replace it.
Shout out to grief recovery because
and so with my father, like I had to like let go of, and it got easier as I got older because I understood how these things could get away from you.
Yeah.
Right? Like how you could like have a kid but not really know if you have a kid, but then like know that you had a kid, but still have to like live life, right? And so like not to suggest that like what he did was right. You can understand a little bit better. You can have some empathy, right? And so like I had to let that go for him so that I could move forward, right? Not necessarily with the relationship with him, which that did come, but that's more reconciliation. That takes two parties.
Yeah.
The forgiveness part was for me, so I wasn't looking for my father in every man that I met, right? And with every mentor that I was searching for, right? And I think that like that's like a familial example, but there's some stuff like even in our relationship, right? That you've had to forgive me for that, heck, I might not even know that you forgave me for. And so maybe you should talk about that a little bit so I can find out what you be forgiving me for. Yeah, I put a mic in front of you so I can pump you for information. That's what's going on here.
Well, you know my policy. If you ask, I got to give it to you. So most recently, talking about the dance studio.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's super fresh, bro.
Yeah. So fun fact, I have a dance studio. We are celebrating, in a few months, we'll be celebrating 10 years in business. In the process of relocating to another space, a bigger space. I'm sharing a space right now and we are currently outgrowing. And so the hunt for a new space, the diligence with which I have been doing it, kind of like shutting a lot of stuff out, talking about budgeting, how much I think I'm going to need for the move. And, you know, my husband was being a bit of a negative Nancy.
Yeah.
And like, well, I don't know if we should do that, or do you think that's too much money, and what about having to pay it back? And I'm like, my guy.
Yeah.
To the point where I started to pull back on how much I was sharing with you. So because I needed to be excited about it.
Yeah.
This is the first time that I've ever done anything like this. And so, and the person that I wanted to share it with the most didn't necessarily feel like a safe space for me to dream.
Yeah.
And so
that's heavy.
It was also really hard to keep it from you and to continue in the direction that I was going, because it felt like I was going against you, which is difficult for me, but I couldn't stop because I know what God said.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that you listen to God, right? Because that's really the thing. I think that like I was dealing with some unhealed trauma myself. Right. In that process. And so like there was things that was reminding me of things that I thought that I had let go. Right. That were legitimately triggering me. Right. When it came to the finances. And so wanting to make sure that like we were okay financially going forward, taking a chance on some of that stuff was, you know, I was nervous about.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm really glad that you like forgave me and stuff. It's like we're moving forward, and like I'm very proud of the work that you're doing with the studio. And how it's growing. I think I want to like shift gears to like what that looks like on a reconciliation side, because like it's one thing to forgive, but how do you reconcile? How do you get back in right standing, right? And so like in the faith, we talk about it from terms of Jesus paid it all. Absolutely correct. Paid for the sin. Absolutely correct. No arguments there. The real like thing is he came so that you would be reconciled in right standing with God. And so like that part takes work. How do you engage in that reconciliation part of the work?
I think just like we are reconciled to where there has been, you know, a debt paid for that possibility, it is still our choice to do so. We have to choose to be reconciled with a person. And like you said, it only works if both parties agree. So, of course, God wants us to be reconciled with him. we may not be ready because of other things that are going on, or I got to take care of this or do that, or whatever. And so with friendships or with family members and things like that, both parties have to be willing to legit put the offense or whatever they need to forgive. They need to like put that aside and genuinely begin the work of establishing a new relationship, because that old one has died. Because if you keep any remnant of that, then there's the possibility for like rumination or resentment, bitterness, things like that to creep into the relationship again. And now you have this new thing to get over, even though it's supposed to be gone and all of that. And so it's a choice. And I think it's a continuous choice. So it's not just like, I want to be reconciled, you wake up and everything's great. Like, it takes time to build back that trust. It takes time to feel safe in that space around that person, safe to share ideas, safe to just be around them without, fear that another offense will happen. Or even if it does, understanding the motive. Because sometimes you can tell somebody, I prefer to be treated this way, or can you say it like this instead? And if they don't, then you have to ask yourself, was it just like a genuine slip up, or are they not interested in doing the work to make me feel safe in this relationship?
Because I think that you're right. You have to make some decisions about what you want the relationship, or if you want the relationship to continue, right? Yeah. And so like, forgiveness is one thing. Like, you got to put those things to bed, right? And it's not necessarily that you have to forget everything that they did, but like, you do have to like stop making them pay for it.
Yes.
And that takes work. But that reconciliation piece, like, you have to decide whether or not you want the relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes people say, I forgive you, and they may genuinely forgive you, but they don't actually want the relationship. But because we don't understand what like forgiveness means, that it don't mean that we got to be in relationship. You just think that like, oh, well, I forgave you, so like we can go back to the way things were. And it's like, no, I'm not about to put myself in line, in the line of fire. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's clear that you haven't changed this behavior. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's clear that like you might be doing some things that like I don't want to get down with, so like I can move on. Or it was a genuine mistake, or you have committed to being with that person through good times and bad. Right? And so like, sometimes that's like in a relationship, which is why there's a difference between like we kicking it and like marriage. Listen. You feel what I'm saying? Like,
listen,
I know that ain't popular talk there. But like,
no, that's not sexy at all.
Nah, man. Like, just because y'all kicking it and y'all been kicking it, like at any moment somebody could pick up and be like, all right, I'm done.
Just kidding.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's true of marriage, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It should be much more difficult for you to just be like, and it is much more difficult for you to dissolve a marriage than it is for you to just be like, we're not together no more.
Can we talk about, okay, I'm wondering if I should say this. I'm going to say it. So I think part of the reason that it's so difficult for people to stick and stay is because they're not doing the work of the intimacy.
All right. You about to open up a box that we ain't got time to go into.
I mean, we got more episodes.
Yeah, we're going to have to come back.
All right.
We're going to have to come back. I didn't think that I was going to come back. I didn't think we was going to double back this thing. So it looks like we might have to do like more of these, right? And so like, looks like we need to discuss some intimacy and like what that actually means on these levels. And so I guess, right, that's all I got to say about this episode, but maybe the next episode when we got another guest, we can talk about intimacy.
That's cool.
Thanks for hopping on my show.
I do what I can.
You know what I'm saying? I like
class up the joint, Yeah,
that's fair. It's a little classier in here. I got on a button up and everything. You know what I mean? Like, still did the trucker hat. Because, anyway, that's so I said. We just did. And we out.